Welcome to another episode of Mommy Speaks Canto and Mando, 妈咪讲广东话和普通话, where you learn how to casually chat in Canto and Mando for health, medical, and other matters as they pop up. These videos reinforce the lessons from the podcast, Cantonese and Mandarin for medical matters and more. If you're interested in hearing the podcast, which has the full dialogue in episode 32, this video just has 2 sentences. The podcast link is in the information area below. Okay, let's jump back into the dialogue and recap the line from the previous episode.
我試過打電話，但係我淨係遇到電話聯繫網，然後白白喺度聽乏味嘅等待音樂。我試過打電話，但是我只是遇到電話聯繫網，然後白白的聽乏味的等待音樂。
Never mind that listening to music, generally speaking any kind of music, is good for the soul. But let's save that for another day and see what more is going on in our search for the missing doctor.
卒之得個吉，冇人聽電話，不過冇所謂。到頭來一場空，沒有人接電話，不過無所謂。
冇所謂，橫掂佢凈係識得開啲冇鬼用藥。無所謂，反正他只會開一些亂七八糟藥。
These are pretty good examples of where the English and Chinese sentence structures are in sync. So you can pretty much figure out what the words mean. The only thing I want to point out as a cultural note is the Canto saying,
得個吉, that can bring to mind images of tangerines. Because the word gut from 得個吉 is a word for tangerine and is a homonym for a different Chinese character, gut, that means lucky, auspicious. Which is why you'll always see guts during Chinese New Year's. But the expression 得個吉 does not mean anything close to lucky or auspicious. Canto's 得個吉 means the same thing as Mando's 一場空. That means all one's hopes and efforts come to nothing. The Mando 一場空 is the minimized essence of the idiom 竹篮打水一场空, that literally means wicker basket, draw water, futile. Which is why you'll find the definitions for 竹篮打水一场空 as meaning using a wicker basket to draw water or wasted effort. And obviously the latter meaning of this idiom is the most succinct. It is the meaning of just the 一场空 and the one which brings it into the realm of Canto's 得個吉, how all one's hopes and efforts come to nothing.
It just so happens, and of course it's by design, that the Canto gut in
得個吉 has another meaning, and that is water bucket. Compared to the Canto use of gut in 得個吉, Mando's use of 空 in 一場空 is a bit more straightforward. 空 by itself means empty, hollow, bare, deserted.
Canto has the tendency to use positive-sounding words that allude to a negative meaning, so the word gut that's used in the dialogue that sounds like lucky or auspicious, but has the meaning of water bucket,
alludes to the futility of using a wicker basket to hold water from the idiom 竹篮打水一场空, that can be minimally summarized in 一场空, which is synonymous with 得個桔.
If I try to explain this any further, we'll be stuck in an infinite mind loop. So if it doesn't sink in the first time, just come back to it later if you feel you need to. I want to also mention that even though the Canto way of answering the phone in the dialogue is
聽電話, we could have just as easily used the Mando's way of 接電話. That is, the Canto could have been 接電話, but it's a tad more formal than 聽電話. And guess what? You can also say 接聽電話, 接聽電話, as yet another way to say answer the phone. We sort of glossed over 聽, 聽 in the previous episode because it was obvious by its placement that it means to listen to something.
That would be from the line from the previous third video of this dialogues.
聽乏味嘅等待音樂, 聽乏味的等待音樂, listening to insipid hold music. So 聽電話, 聽電話 literally means to listen to the phone, which in the compound word actually means to answer the phone.
Let's look at another 聽, 聽 word. It's a commonplace word that exists in the precarious domain of frontline workers.
聽診器, 聽診器. That is literally listen, and in this case, the same sounding Canto Mando, 聽, examine patient, diagnose, 診, 診, instrument, 器, 器. That's your run-of-the-mill stethoscope. Now, before we move on, let's look at the 接, 接 of 接電話, 接電話, where 接, 接 does mean to answer. So 接電話, 接電話 does literally mean to answer the phone. But 接, 接 is also commonly known to mean to connect. So the links, the web links, you click on to connect you over to another web page or a pop-up page or a pop-up window is 連接, 連接, where the 連 means chain, wire, cable, and when you pair it with the connect meaning of 接, 接, then the connecting by means of a chain, wire, or cable gives us the web link, meaning for 连接, 连接.
Before we do a recap, I just want to mention that in the beginning of the sentence, we had the end. That is, the words for in the end. 这鸡, 到头来. If we want to further dissect these words, the Canto
这鸡 is literally finally, at last, finish, end. That's the 这 part. And then to, go to, of is the G part. So you can think of 这鸡 as of the end or go to the end, which is pretty much in the end. 到头来呢 is best left alone and taken at face value to mean in the end. But if you've been listening to my podcasts, you'll know I sometimes go overboard with these explanations, and you know what? You have free will. You can simply fast forward these things, but it might be helpful to some. In any case, in our current context, you can split 到头来 as 到头, which in and of itself means to the end of, at the end of, in the end, to come to an end. And the 来 can mean to arrive, so that 到头来 can mean to come to an end or arrive at the end, which brings us back to its in the end meaning.
If you really want to go all in and split up all of the words even further, then you can look at 到头来
Dao in its to go to, arrive meanings, to with its head and the top meanings, and finally lai with its come or return meanings. So it's like a boomerang that went up all the way to the top and then came back, returned, thus expressing the futility of the whole process of 到头来, like from the beginning to end, it's just been one big to-do about nothing. Like you were stuck in the mud, spinning your wheels, going nowhere fast, from beginning to end.
Let's recap the sentence.
卒之得個桔，冇人聽電話。到頭來一場空，沒有人接電話。
Next, we have the start of the sentence that's pretty straightforward.
不過冇所謂，不過無所謂。不過 has the but meaning, and 冇所謂，無所謂 is the it doesn't matter or the dialogue's it's just as well meaning.
Now, we've previously learned 不過from the PTSD podcast, episode 30, in the clause
不過咁，為咗目前嘅 COVID-19， 邊一個可以話佢而家嘅世界冇咩唔妥啊？又要戴口罩，又要同其他人之間保持6尺距離。不過呢，為了目前的 COVID-19， 誰能說他現在的世界沒什麼不妥呢？又要戴口罩，又要和其他人之間保持6尺距離。
So this leaves us with the remaining 冇所謂，無所謂. It doesn't matter.
You might say it's just laziness to leave 冇所謂，無所謂 as is.
Because really, you can't break down these components to shed light on how their meanings add up to 冇所謂，無所謂's meaning of it doesn't matter.
With some Chinese compound words, you just have to accept them at their face value and move on. Of course, if anyone feels that they can break down 冇所謂，無所謂 into meaningful parts, then by all means have at it, and maybe share your thoughts in the comments area.
In any case, this start of the sentence
不過冇所謂，不過無所謂
is picked up in the next line.
冇所謂，橫掂佢凈係識得開啲冇鬼用藥。無所謂，反正他只會開一些亂七八糟藥。
The interesting word in this sentence is the Chinese usage of the word hoi, kai, when you're talking about prescribing meds. Hoi yao, kai yao.
Now, hoi, kai means prescribe only when it's paired with drugs, meds, yao, or in some symbiotic relationship with yao, as it is in the dialogue. But hoi, kai can mean a lot of things for a lot of situations.
Like it can mean to hold, as in holding a meeting. Hoi wui, kai hui. It can mean start, as in starting the engine of a car, or to drive or operate, as in driving or operating a car. Hoi che, kai che. Now in Canto, you can also say 揸車, meaning to drive a car, or 撻着架車, to start up the engine of a car. But 開車 is also used.
Like if you got a speeding ticket and you came home and, you look sheepishly at your family and they know you, So they say,
梗係開車太快咧，應該開車太快了吧? You were speeding, weren't you? It can mean to turn on, switch on, as in to turn on the lights. 開燈，開燈. It can mean to keep a distance, as in get away from me. 行開，讓開. It can mean to undergo or perform, as in going under the knife, that is to perform or to have a surgery. 開刀，開刀.
There's much more meanings showing how pervasive hoi kai can be. But let me just wrap this up with the most common meaning, and that is
to open, as in open the door. 開門，開門, or open-minded. 開通，開通, or to open the book. 打開本書，打開本書. Then there's the usage of hoi kai, whose meaning of open is both literal and figurative, as in 你仲敢開口講佢啲閒話？你還敢開口說他的壞話？ You still have the gumption to open your trap to talk trash about her?
now in the dialogue, it isn't just meds that are being prescribed. It's crappy meds, in the opinion of the dialogue's character, that's being prescribed, which would be
開冇鬼用藥，開亂七八糟藥.
Okay, let's stop talking trash and recap.
冇所謂，橫掂佢凈係識得開啲冇鬼用藥。無所謂，反正他只會開一些亂七八糟藥。
Now let's recap both lines.
卒之得個桔，冇人聽電話，不過冇所謂。
冇所謂，橫掂佢淨係識得開啲冇鬼用藥。
到頭來一場空，沒有人接電話，不過無所謂。
無所謂，反正他只會開一些亂七八糟藥。
In case you were wondering about the main picture of Mom, she was at the SF Asian Art Museum's Au Ho-nien, Au Ho-nien exhibit. She's eyeing the painting Eagles Perching on a Pine Tree that has the minimalist Chinese name of Chongying, Songying, that literally means pine eagle. This artist is interesting in that while his style of painting harkens back to the 19th century ink wash paintings, you'll also find elements of modern day times like cars,